Welcome to Viv's Groovy Garden, coming to you again today, like last week, from my home office because it's still kind of yucky and cold outside. So we may be in the middle of winter, but this time of year is the perfect time to start thinking about what you're going to be doing next year in your garden, to plan ahead, because it's just like painting a room. If you prep it ahead of time and get everything planned, you might have some more success. But sometimes things don't go as well as they planned, as I found out last year. So today I'm going to talk to you about the 3 things I recommend you do to start off the new year to prepare for your garden for the upcoming growing season. And that's number 1 is figure out what went really well. Number 2, find out what didn't go so well. And then number 3, you can sort of start making some adjustments so you can hopefully have a better year next year. That's the thing about gardening. Even for master gardeners like me, you can work so hard to make everything perfect. And because you're outside in nature, things are going to go wrong. Things might not work like you thought. But I like to think of it as a growing experience, no pun intended, for next season. So those 3 points, what worked, what didn't work, and what I'm going to be doing different next year. First, let's go look at last year's garden. Here's my setup. This is my kitchen garden in high season last year. It has 6 raised beds that my hubby and kids helped me build. And that process I'm going to show you in an upcoming episode in case you want to construct your own. It also has a critter-proof fence to keep bunnies and deer out. And I learned about that the hard way. I'll show you how to make a really sturdy one that keeps those critters out in an upcoming episode as well. There's also a workbench here and a lot of extra pots outside of the beds for vegetables and flowers that I want to keep separate. I garden in other areas around the house and property too, but this kitchen garden is my happy place for sure. Okay, so what worked well in 2024 for me? Broccoli. It was a gangbuster year for broccoli. Brassicas. I started a bunch of seeds in the basement, calabrese and king, and wow, did they do well in the beds. I staggered them, so I had broccoli throughout the season and well into the fall. They really like cool weather. But I had so many seedlings started in the basement that I couldn't fit them into the beds. So I popped some of them in pots with high quality compost rich soil, but that didn't really work so well. My broccoli didn't like being in the pots nearly as much as they liked being in the beds where they had more room. So I'm not going to be doing them in the pots again next year. But what did work really well in pots outside of beds were tomatoes. Last year was a really tough year for tomatoes because it was wet and cool early on, and it was wet kind of throughout the summer, and that allowed blight and other issues all across the region. Tomatoes really like hot weather. But this year they did really well in those pots. Also last year, my greens, my lettuces and kales did really well in this bed. It's a smaller bed that I just put in this year. My husband helped me make it, but it was really great for cutting greens, and this did really well. But like the broccoli, what didn't do very well in the pots were beans. I tried planting beans in pots and built a trellis so they could grow up and around it, but they just didn't like it. I think they wanted more room. And also, beans add nitrogen back into the soil. So I think keeping that soil in a bed where that nitrogen can then be beneficial for other plants is a good idea for next year. Another thing that didn't go so well in my garden last year was some of my kale that I planted in another bed outside of the cutting greens bed, the one that I just built, because it was too hot and sunny. Kale does not like heat, that doesn't like a lot of sun, and they were really small plants. They looked kind of sickly, and they also had yellowish white lines on them, which meant they were getting scalded by the sun. So no kale in that bed next year. Also last year, I had an issue with my blueberry bushes. I am obsessed with blueberries. I absolutely love them, but I didn't get my protective anti-bunny, anti-deer fence around my blueberries early enough. And when I thought the bunnies should be sleeping and trying to stay out of the cold, they came into the garden and chomped on my blueberries. And what was going to be a great year, because it takes blueberries several years to get going, was terrible because they ate the stems that had all the buds on them. So I really had nothing. But I try to be an optimist and think that those bunnies did me a favor by pruning my bushes. So over the next couple of years, they'll do really well. The last thing that I didn't do well last year, actually, I did it really well, was planting seeds in the basement, starting seeds. I looked through the catalogs and I chose the seeds I wanted and I took care to plant them. But I was so excited that I planted some of them too early. That some of the tomatoes and the squashes I planted so early that they were ready and developing flowers like a month before it was warm enough to put them outside. So I'm not going to be so aggressive with my seed starting next year. So, in some upcoming episodes, I will go over choosing the right seeds and garden design. It's a great time of year to think about that stuff. It really helps me look forward to what's coming up when the weather gets warmer, and it helps me get through the gloomy winter days. Don't forget to send me any of your gardening questions, vwilliams@kttc.com, or pop them on the Midwest Access Facebook. I will answer them for you. And also, if you have some cool pictures to share or ideas, please send them and then I will share them with the viewers. Thanks for joining me in the Groovy Garden. I'll see you next time.